Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to see so many of you here. Indeed, I think, as our host of this afternoon said, it's an excellent timing for this debate on the Energy Union. 2015, I think, will be a decisive year on the future of that project. It's a project, a subject that is not only of vital importance for our industry, but I think probably it's even more to society as a whole. So we're right on time with the content of the Energy Union is being developed, as Sven Kokkelman said. Of course, the situation in Ukraine has brought the subject of energy security back to the fore, representing the first of the 5 pillars that support the concept of the Energy Union. The other pillars are the completion of the internal energy market, emission reduction, moderation of demand, and research and innovation. To all these pillars, I apply the same standard. I think they can only work if free market principles are followed. Maybe you will, after my speech, think, well, this is really a free market advocate, and maybe I am, but I will also make some remarks on that. I'm very pleased that the European Commission, the Council, and the European Parliament have stressed that market fundamentals come first. Nevertheless, I know that some doubts about whether the market can do enough are existent. So it's not surprising that a number of ideas are considered that not only go beyond the market, but potentially could even be harmful to the functioning of the market. Am I a market fundamentalist? I think I'm not, because I'm sure that without regulation, markets cannot be efficient. And therefore, I will discuss, apart from market principles, also the prerequisites that are necessary to make markets work. But first, some remarks about market principles. The first market principle is an obvious one, because no one has more knowledge, experience, and flexibility to organize economic supplies than a company whose job is just to do that. There's no better incentive than competition for a company to do its work well in a cost-efficient way. Secondly, as far as emergencies are concerned, a short market provides an additional drive for a company to deliver. In a liquid market, the resulting price will still be a competitive one, and therefore the lowest cost at which we can achieve security of supply. And finally, and this is a very important point, a liquid market generates the incentives to attract supplies from the expanding global gas market. As a result, at any moment, the market defines the most economical diversification. But I'm well aware that these fundamental words need a view on conditions that shape the market. So what are the prerequisites for the market to deliver as it should? The rules of the market should be such that they attract companies to operate in it, to fuel competition. First of all, we need to be sure that companies are operating on a level playing field with their competitors, and that the rules that apply when entering the market form a stable framework. These companies are the ones that make important investments that contribute to the market and have a long time horizon. The more certainty there is, the lower the costs will be. Further, to be a reliable supplier of gas, flexibility is needed. And that is the possibility to procure gas from different sources, both conventional and unconventional indigenous gas, imports via pipelines, or as LNG or storage. But above all, you also need security of demand. You don't go into a business without managing risks. And if you don't know whether you will be able to sell products at the right conditions, it's unlikely that companies will invest. The more uncertain the market, the higher the risk premium. Now, this raises the question, which political and legislative instruments can provide these prerequisites? Let me first elaborate on the security of demand. It's closely linked to clear national policies regarding the energy mix and EU policies for the transition to a low-carbon energy system. These policies should be technology neutral and let all forms of energy and all forms of saving energy compete and partner up with each other. The greenhouse gas reduction target of 40% by 2030 is helpful, but it must be complemented, it must be supported by the right policy instruments. And the most of these instruments, the most important one, is a fast revamping of the emissions trading system and the assurance that the system is not negatively impacted by efforts to achieve the targets for renewables and energy efficiency. Moreover, the full and legally correct implementation of the infrastructure package and the third package are the major instruments. This includes the wholesale market and network codes as much as the retail market. Whilst doing this, regional cooperation, as well as consideration to regional particularities, is important. If you do not speak and coordinate at least with your direct neighbor, you cannot have a market you trust. On the other hand, if we're able to develop regional hubs, the liquidity of the market increases and benefits the whole region. In addition, and this applies to ETS and non-ETS sectors, for a market to be secure, competitive and low carbon, all instruments must be market-driven so that they are used where they are most efficient. Let me mention a few: energy efficiency, demand-side response, fuel switch, technological innovation, and so on. Gas grids, they may seem simple, but they are naturally smart, and they support smart electricity grids by delivering flexibly according to demand. They do that by carrying and transporting excess electricity from renewables as hydrogen or synthetic methane, and by taking on biomethane. Ladies and gentlemen, I think some of you might be getting bored already. Nice talk about an ideal world with a perfectly competitive market. And you may say the real world is different, my dear friend. Some of us rely on a single source of supply. And when that is disrupted, how can we trust the market? So what must you do? What needs doing until you can trust the market? And here, of course, solidarity comes into play. Because as long as the market works as it should, it supports solidarity. However, the concept of solidarity by no means removes or lessens the need for every country to implement the security of supply regulation and to do its utmost to ensure that the market does work. But in this respect, some ideas are under consideration that could undermine market mechanisms, which is a concern for me, because a poorly functioning market would affect all of us since it is less efficient and hence costlier. Probably the most prominent idea that attracts the attention when we talk about the energy union is collective purchasing or aggregating demand on a voluntary basis. And apart from the doubt how such approaches could be compatible with EU competition law, I strongly question whether countries or companies buying gas jointly from one supplier can provide the flexibility in supply and price formation needed to respond to varying demand and needs, and for further sales of the gas purchased as a group. Moreover, I'm convinced that such an approach could be counter-effective. It might result in a lower degree of diversification and as such a lower degree of security of supply. The signal to the globalizing gas market would be that Europe risks restraining commercial freedoms, which ultimately would inhibit the growth of the competitive market and would potentially have an adverse impact on prices. When we have measures which are focused on one supplier of Europe and we implement them in our European practice, it will also be seen by other suppliers to the European market. And it is sure that we are very much dependent on external suppliers for our gas in the coming decades. So instead, we should strengthen the development of a market-driven cross-border infrastructure and make sure that parties cooperate and support each other based on a shared commercial understanding. Therefore, crucial is the further development of interconnectors that enable a bi-directional flow of gas. Implementation of the infrastructure package is necessary to speed up this process across European networks. Another idea under consideration that could undermine market mechanisms is that of strategic storage at European level, or virtual common capacity reserves, as it's called. I question whether you can trust such instruments more than the market. Especially, such a course could give preference to one flexibility instrument over another, for example, additional imports, and thus reduce again flexibility. If a country does opt for strategic backup stocks or public service obligations, these should not distort the market. Moreover, the commercial storage market should be facilitated as much as possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after having said so many positive things about the market, you might be surprised that I am in favor of solidarity as well. My recommendations on this subject are as follows. Let the EU speak with one voice when establishing and maintaining good diplomatic relations with gas supply and transit countries across the world. This will make it easier for companies to engage in a global energy market to the benefit of the EU consumer. Let's fully implement and, if necessary, revise the regulation of security of gas supply, but maintain the principle that even in an emergency, market-based measures should be given priority to mitigate the effects of supply disruption. Only if these are not enough, non-market measures might be pursued. Achieve solidarity through market-driven regional cooperation. In other words, if security standards are wanted beyond what the market is currently able to provide, procure these through bilateral agreements and open and transparent tenders. Ladies and gentlemen, I see Mr. Kokkelman approaching, so let me conclude. The market fundamentals are not only the most efficient force to secure supplies, but also pave the way to a low-carbon society. I hope that I have been able to convince you that you can trust the market as much as I do, and I do hope that this will be reflected in the Council deliberations and conclusions on the Energy Union. What is good for business here provides the optimal cover for our citizens, both the strong and the vulnerable ones. Thank you for your attention.